All right, today we're going to dive into what I think is one of the most powerful tools in any manufacturer's toolkit: overall equipment effectiveness, or as you'll usually hear it, OEE. This is all about finding and unlocking a ton of hidden potential that, trust me, you might not even realize is there. I mean, just look at a modern factory floor. It's incredible, right? You've got this complex dance of robots, of highly skilled people. And the goal is always the same: get more out of your assets for less cost. But here's the thing. In all that complexity, it is so easy for massive amounts of productivity to just get lost, to disappear into the noise. So let me ask you this. What if you could seriously boost your capacity, slash your costs, and improve quality, all without spending a dime on new equipment? Sounds too good to be true, right? Well, that potential is already there. It's just operating in the shadows of inefficiency. That's what we call the hidden factory. And this is where the gap between perception and reality just becomes massive. You see, a lot of plants track something they call efficiency, and they'll proudly report, 85, maybe 90%. But that's usually because they're only measuring when everything's running perfectly. The moment you apply the strict, honest lens of OEE, that number plummets. It's often closer to 60%, sometimes even 40%. And that huge gap, that is your hidden factory. So, okay, how do we actually find and measure all that hidden capacity? Well, the key, as you've probably guessed, is OEE. The best way to think about it, it's like a universal scorecard for how productive you really are. So what exactly is it? Well, OEE is a KPI, a key performance indicator, that boils everything down to one single really powerful score. What it's doing is measuring how your machines are actually performing compared to their absolute perfect potential. A fantasy world where you're making only good parts as fast as you possibly can with zero downtime. It's the ultimate benchmark. Okay, so it's built on three core ideas. The first one is availability. This is super simple. It just asks the question, during the time you plan to be making stuff, was the machine actually running? This counts all the stop time. Everything from planned stops for setups and maintenance to, the unplanned stuff like breakdowns. Next up, we've got performance. So for the time the machine was running, the question is, how fast was it really going? This is all about measuring speed loss. It compares what you actually made to what you could have made at top speed. This is where you see the impact of things like tiny little stops or choosing to run at a slower than ideal pace. And the third piece of the puzzle is quality. Pretty straightforward, right? Of all the parts that came off the line, how many of them were actually good ones? This is all about making perfect parts the first time. It counts all the defects, the scrap, anything that needs to be reworked. Now here is the absolutely crucial part. You don't add these scores together. You multiply them. Availability times performance times quality. That gives you your final OEE score. And what that means is a low score in just one of those areas is going to tank your overall number. There's just no hiding a weak link. And this table is a perfect example of why you have to look at all three components. So at first glance, you might say, hey, Shift 2 is better. Its OEE is 86.6%. But hold on, look closer. Yeah, Shift 2 got a 5% boost in availability, which is great, but its quality score dropped by 3.5%. So is that a trade-off you really want to make? Are you just making more bad parts faster? See, OEE gives you the whole story, not just one misleading number. So you see, OEE isn't just about getting a grade. It's a diagnostic tool. It's like an MRI for your production line that helps you find exactly where your productivity is leaking out. Let's dig into how it does that. Basically, OEE helps you sort all your production losses into what are known as the 6 big losses. And you can see how they map perfectly to our 3 factors. Under availability, you've got the big stuff like breakdowns, but also the planned downtime for setups and adjustments. For performance, it's all about what slows you down, those annoying small stops from a jammed sensor or running at a reduced speed. And then for quality, you've got your startup rejects and your regular old production rejects. Suddenly, you have a crystal clear roadmap of exactly what you need to fix. And this quote really just hits the nail on the head. Look, everybody knows when a line goes down for a few hours. That's a big deal, all hands on deck. But what so few people see are the losses that happen every single day, just a minute or two at a time. It's death by 1,000 cuts. A jam here, a blocked sensor there. These things can add up to thousands of little failures every week. And guess what? Without an automated system, most of them just fly completely under the radar. Okay, so you've diagnosed the problems. Now for the fun part. What's the actual payoff for fixing them? This is where it gets really, really exciting. We are talking about real-world, high-impact results. Let's talk money. Imagine you have a critical machine, and every hour it's down, you're losing 10 grand, okay? Now, what if you use OEE to find a way to reduce that downtime by just 2%? A tiny little 2%. Well, that small change can translate into more than $1.6 million a year in savings and new opportunities. That's not pocket change. And look, this isn't some pie in the sky scenario. A lot of manufacturers who really commit to an OEE program see a 4 to 10% improvement in the very first year. The ROI is huge, and it can happen really fast. Let's get into some real-world stories. Case in point, an auto plant was really struggling to get more cars off the line. So they put in an OEE system. And what did they find? Hundreds of these little tiny stops that nobody was even logging. Turns out it was just a simple mechanical misalignment. They fixed that one little thing, and boom, they were producing 8 more vehicles every single day. And it's not always a mechanical problem either. At a food and beverage plant, the OEE data showed something fascinating. Operators were intentionally slowing down a machine. Now, why would they do that? Well, it was to keep it from jamming up when the machines further down the line got backed up. The OEE data didn't just blame the operators. It pointed management to the real bottleneck that was causing that behavior in the first place. And for this last one, let's talk about saving some serious cash. A medical device company thought they were out of capacity. They were getting ready to write a massive check for a brand new machining center. But first, they decided to try OEE. They used it to hunt down and eliminate their biggest downtime issues. And what happened? They unlocked so much hidden capacity in the machines they already owned that they could support 3 new products. That's a huge capital expense they just didn't have to make. Okay, so the benefits are pretty clear, right? So if you're sitting there thinking, I want to unlock my hidden factory, where do you even start? What's the first step on the path to becoming a world-class operation? Step 1, and this is the foundation for everything, is getting good data. And that means automated data collection. You have got to get away from the old school method of operators with clipboards trying to write down every little stop. It just doesn't work. The key is real-time monitoring, using sensors that pull the data directly from your machines to be stored and analyzed automatically. Once you have that data, you'll get your OEE score. And this chart kind of shows you where you might stand. Now, a score around 40% is, well, it's poor, but honestly, it's a super common place to start, so don't panic. 60% is pretty typical for most companies, but the gold standard you're shooting for is that world-class score of 85%. And that 85% isn't just some number pulled out of thin air. To be considered truly world-class, you generally have to hit some really specific targets. We're talking 90% availability, so very little downtime. 95% performance, meaning you're running at almost perfect speed. And a super tough 99% quality, which is pretty close to 0 defects. So when you boil it all down, it's this. Your equipment, your processes, your entire factory is talking to you all the time. It's constantly generating data, telling you exactly where the problems are and where the biggest opportunities are hiding. OEE is simply the language that lets you understand what it's saying. It translates all that noise into a clear, actionable signal. So the only real question is, are you going to listen?